Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our fortnightly podcasts.
Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking to Jake Nowlan from Jake Nowlan's Working Dogs. How you going, buddy?
Good, thank you.
We got there in the end.
Yeah, we did. It's a little bit of a scare.
That's all right.
It was all Daniel. It was actually all Daniel when we worked it out.
My computer's had enough. It's packed up, so time for a new one. How's your day, mate?
Good. I've actually just chasing She. I've actually got Matty Sherwood staying here for tonight. He's here for 3 or 4 days, helping me do a bit of sheep work. So me and him were in the race together today and just, talking and had a real good day, actually.
The iPhone bandit himself. How many photos was he taking compared to doing work?
I didn't see him taking any, but we might see something pop up on Instagram or something later.
And working the race there, was there any racing involved in working the race? Was it a bit of
No, it was actually pretty chill. We're just talking about just contemplating a lot of different things and talking dogs. And I was mucking around the Huntaways a little bit, and Matt was sort of showing me his young dog. So it was actually, real good.
Beautiful, mate. Where, for our listeners there, mate, where's home at the moment?
I live up in a place called Kaiban. So it's in the Snowy Mountains on the Monaro, so near about 10 k's north of Nimity Bell. So right on top of the Great Dividing Range, really, and we're about an hour to Tathra, Merimbula area, and then about an hour and 20 minutes to Thredbo. So it's a pretty cool spot to live.
Yeah, are you going to get any work done in winter, mate, living that close to the snow?
I always have intentions of getting up there and getting into doing the snowboarding, but I always manage to be busy. So I do slip up there every now and again, though. Like I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they're pretty keen on it. So I do try and get there every now and again. Not as much as I should, though.
Wow, beautiful, mate. And you all right?
That's all right. I was going to say, did you grow up in that area or?
No, I grew up in a town called Young, and it's about 5 hours from here. I've actually got a little bit of country of my own out there, so I still get out there a little bit. And I've still got some good friends and stuff there, and I love Young and that area. Like we're about half an hour west of there, but it's a pretty cool spot to grow up out there.
How'd your working dog / passion for agriculture kickstart, mate?
So I'm a 6th generation farmer. My family settled in the 1840s out there, and it was once a very big block, but it's sort of, as years go by and families, brothers, and they split it up and it gets smaller and smaller. And I'm probably at the point now where there's not enough there I've got 4 brothers and sisters, so there's not enough there to make a living, for me, myself. But that's where I grew up, out there on the farm, and every school holidays, and we actually lived in town, and we travelled, like Dad travelled out. So, but ag's always been a massive part of my life.
Yeah, cool. And what about the dog side of it, mate? Was that part of that?
I've been obsessed with dogs, like since I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I've had. I remember I actually gave the book to Roy, but I had a book, and it was a dog encyclopedia, and I would just read it every night, and I was just obsessed with dogs. And then there was always a lot of dogs. Because on the farm it was a big depot shed, so there was like 5 or 6 farms that used the one shearing shed. It used to be a big 10-stander, and so all the farms, as the farms got split up, people and families kept use of the sheds, and they'd all turn up there, and they'd all have their 2 or 3 kelpies each, and and I always talk to the old guys, and which dog was bred by who, and which dog was the best scrapper, and which dog you could send the biggest cast. And I was always just really intrigued with dogs, and it sort of it never left me, and it still hasn't.
Yeah, beautiful. And how did that journey progress? Like from being that young fella asking questions, did you grab yourself a mentor and stick to them? And
no,
I
used to really love like the older guys there. There was a fella, he was my cousin. His name was Bill, and he was in his 70s. And the old fella, they always just had real good yarns to tell. And I would sit there, and he'd be poking about, and he had a couple of sons, and he'd be drenching and stuff. And I would just be asking questions and just I was just obsessed with it. Like, and my grandfather and all them, they used to run a heap of Borzois and staghounds and greyhounds and like just mad on hunting. So it wasn't just the working dogs. But I did sort of work my dad's dogs, and I would, I used to love getting in the shearing sheds and penning up, and but everywhere, that was all I spoke to, all the people that were there. I just was always quizzing them about dogs. And next door, the first guy I probably saw working good dogs was a fella called Trevor Ryan, and he was managing the farm next door, the stock side of things, and he had some really good dogs, like had some Basil dogs and a lot of Phil's Creek dogs for the guy from Greg Carmody from Borora, and like they were real good race dogs and plenty of go and like good in the paddock, and I would just be like, looking back as a little kid, I would have like drove him nuts. Like I was just walking up the side of the race while he's drenching, and I'm just asking him all these questions about breeds. And he used to do a bit of dog trialing, and he was a proper, really, really good to me. And he was a real sort of bushy too. Like I think he spent a fair bit of time up north, like in Queensland, jackarooing and stuff. And he had an old WB ute, and he'd pull up with 5 or 6 kelpies, and I just thought he was cool as. And I'm actually, still, he's bred some really good merinos now out there, and he's stuck solid to the sheep in cropping. Like everything's gone cropping, like everyone's just pulled their fences out and put the trees out. But he's sort of in the middle out there on his own with some really good sheep. So he was probably one that showed me what a good dog was probably capable of, I reckon.
You were the kid that would now do your head in beside the race.
Well, my son's 12, and Roy's just moved out here with me, and like I'm starting to homeschool him, and he's the same, and he's super annoying, but I'm just like, it's just me, it's myself, and he's got that same inquisitive nature, and that book, that dog encyclopedia I've given him, like he wore it out, like it's just fallen apart and in shreds now, but yeah, he's exactly the same as me, and he's got 3 or 4 hunting dogs himself, and he's into the dog. He's got a broken in dog there, and he's actually pretty handy. And with the kelpies and the Hunaway, I've got him a young Hunaway pup, and I have been pretty hard on him. Like I told him that he's not allowed to get a working dog till he can blow a whistle, and it took him about 18 months to start, and he can really put the tunes in now. And like he's probably doing 4 or 5 hours work at least a day now, mastering on horse and stuff, and he's become really, really handy for me. Like he's pretty capable, and he's sending his dogs out a long way and getting good stops, and he's so hopefully, it's up to him, but if he, I'm starting to trying to push him into a little bit, but not too much, because I just remember what I was like as a kid. I got, if you get pushed into something, you sort of don't want to do it. And if you, so I'll just try to give him a bit of space with it. But time will tell if he sticks with it or not.
You mentioned his first broken in dog there. Do you remember your first well broken in dog?
So my first, I worked my dad's dogs and stuff, penning up. And my dad, he always had, he never had many dogs. He'd only have one dog. He's like he always told me you just want one good dog. And he always had a really good dog that he could sort of leave a long way away from the house, and they'd bring sheep to the shearing shed, and weren't backies as such, but they did have a bit of bark in the yards, and just real sort of old school sort of sheep dogs. But I did get my first pup around 25 years ago now, and I got it off Steve Condell at Wagga, and I didn't know Steve was a dog man or anything, but I got my auntie, she worked with someone at the hospital, at Wagga Base Hospital, and I was just mad I came home from the Easter show, and I met Jim Luce down there, and I still remember to this day even what Jim was wearing in Jan, and from that moment, I remember Jim was working Capri Minute and Punch, and he said Jan used to commentate while Jim worked the dogs, and I remember she said Minute's the only dog alive to win 2 national kelpies, and he was working Punch, and she said Punch won an Australian title, and I was, and I just remember saying to myself at that moment, as I think it was 12 or 13, I said I'm gonna win a national kelpie in an Australian yard trial one day, and I came, I annoyed Jim. I was at the Easter show for 2 weeks, and he was doing 4 shows a day, and I would have sent him mad too. Like I was there just. I was there like half an hour before him, and I'd be just sitting on the hay bar waiting for him to turn up, and then he'd turn up, Jim and Jan, they'd go, hey, Jake, and I'd be there at every show, and I'd be asking if I could feed his dogs and stuff, and I came home from there, and I became obsessed with getting a dog then, and luckily my dad, my auntie helped me, and it was one off Steve Condell, and it ended up being a really good dog, and I won an open with him when he was about 13, 14 months. Like he did... he was a really good dog to me, and I broke him in myself, and he was a bit rough, and he had a fair double cross a minute. Like he was by Kingsley's Nero at Halloween Harper, and he had a fair bit of hard stuff up going. And the mother was went back to a bit of old Glenville stuff, and like she was a good goer, and he was a nice, pretty tough sort of dog. But I sort of took him everywhere with me. I remember I went and competed at Yanko. I just won an open, like my first open at Bribri. I think it was Bribri Show. Anyway, my mum came down actually, and I was at boarding school at Yanko just for a term. I didn't go much on it, but my mum brought me dog down to compete at the Yanko. There used to be a big fair there, and I remember sneaking Fonzie because he'd sleep in my bed. Like I took him everywhere with me, and I remember putting him in my footy bag and taking him up to the motel room. I put a jacket over his head, and he slept in the motel with me. So I was pretty inseparable from him. Yeah.
So I can't imagine you these days having a dog sleep in your bed.
No, I would love to let old Zone inside and leave him off, but he's just like, he just can't. He just goes looking for sheep. I come out there one morning and he had 40 rams in the back veranda. Like he'll just go mustering on me. So he's just addicted to work. Yeah, but I'd let Zone in. But RM's got a bed on the back door, and he doesn't go anywhere and just helps me train my pups. But I would like to have Zone inside, but he's just like, he can't barely walk anymore. But he's just like, he's just like always into trouble, eh?
And you mentioned like Jim there at the Easter show. Like, how much did you harass him after the Easter show?
Jim Lewis has been, I've probably had two really big mentors from a young age, and one's Bill Luff, and Bill was amazing to me as a little kid, and what he did for me looking back. Like he wasn't trying to get money out of me or anything, and I really appreciate what he did. But Jim and Jan were, Jim was like a big father figure to me, and I was still hounding him when I was 30 years old. I rang him up, and he's been a lifelong friend really, and always really amazing to me, and I learned so much off Jim, and he's so softly spoken, and didn't, like, a real humble human, like would never talk himself up, but it was really hard sometimes because you just want him to tell you, like, Jake, you don't do that, but he was just so kind to me, and he'd always just, oh, you're doing a good job, Jake. But I probably learnt more off Jim because he is so humble and kind to me. I did it more by watching, but any issue I ever had with a dog, I could ring Jim, and he would always give me an answer. He'd say, try this, and I'd go outside the next morning and I'd try it, So, and there was no mobiles back then, so I used to remember his phone number, like the house number that you'd ring on the phone. I had like all these dog people's numbers just in memory. So, but I annoyed Jim for a lot of years. So.
And where did you first cross paths with Billy Luff?
So my sister went to Mount Aaron boarding school in Wagga, and she was in the year with Tess, who's Bill's daughter, and she just told her that they must have got talking how her brother's crazy on dogs, and she said, and then I got his number and I rang him, and I was, I might have been 13 or something. I rang him, I said, oh, can I come? And he said, oh, I'm at Wagga dog trial. They used to have the one out there at Doonside, and I remember going to the dog trial, not knowing anyone, and Bill seen me, and I remember the first time he met him, and he just came out of the crowd and was just unbelievable to me, and really took me under his wing and invited me up. And I don't know if he regretted it, because I did go up there. I did go up to Bill's place a lot. Like my dad and mum would take me up, and then as soon as I got my P plates, I was up there all the time.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And you mentioned like Zone there and RM, like you've had some pretty cool dogs. Is there one that actually stands out for you, like at the top of the tree?
I think Like I've had some really good dogs, and I'm probably coming to the end of that era. You know, I had a bitch called Poi, and she was a Hunaway, and the drive and motor and heart in that dog, I probably, you know, it's probably unmatched. You know, the will, but just her nature and her, like she was the most beautiful dog. Like just to have around, and she loved me for some reason, like so much. Like everywhere I went, she just idolized me, and so she has a very special place in my heart. And RM and Zone too. Like Zone's, like I wouldn't be, you know, I wouldn't be where I am today without Zone. Really, like I've put myself in some pretty challenging jobs and situations over the last, you know, 7, 8 years, especially, and like going, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do it without Zone. He was like another person to me. You know, I went to New Zealand. I couldn't take all my dogs, and I had about a dozen broken in dogs at the time because I was on a big place. So my team was down. I got over there, and RM got a heart infection. I got a litter of pups out of another bitch I took, and I leaned on. It was his best year, like sort of 4 to 6 years old, and you know, I took him. What he did for me, I wouldn't have been able to do the things I did without him, and he actually gave me. It probably sounds a bit silly, but he's give me like so much belief in myself, you know, and helped me as a person for the things that I was able to do by the help he gave me. Like, you know, just like leaving him in lanes and he'd take sheep away, or I put him over the fence and he'd go muster a paddock and he'd come back an hour or two later and he'd be at, like the sheep are at the gate, like he'd have 500-600 ewes at the gate, or, you know, you're mustering in really rough terrain. Like I spent a bit of time out the back of Bigger and I bought a farm out there and managing the heap, and you sort of like, you know, if Zone didn't turn up, well, I knew there was stock still out there, and sure enough, like 10 minutes or half hour later, like Zone would turn up with 50 weathers or half a dozen little ewes that you didn't see or miss. Like, so Zone's probably, Zone's, he's been a really special dog to me, and I love him a lot. And look, and I can't, you know, RM too. I love all my dogs. Any dog I keep is, you know, like RM's like, he's a very unique dog, like because he's got so much in him. Like he's got so much heart, and like never ever looking for the back door. And you know, Jim used to describe. I was always asking about Jim's old dogs, and I asked him what is the toughest dog, and he always said Minute. Like he said, he'd go where you wouldn't put your boots, and RM's like that. Like RM's got all, you know, all that desire and, you know, willingness. Like they don't have self-preservation, and you know, and plus all the like he's very nice covering dog and big casting dog, and probably a pretty dirty dog. But I probably didn't help that because, you know, I've caught hundreds of pigs with him as well. So he's, you know, it's sort of hard to have a sheep dog that can, like, if something drops off the back of the mob now, like that probably killer instinct does come out where he will run in and grab it on the arse or knock it over. Like he has got a little bit of shit in him, but you know, I sort of compare him to footy players a little bit in the way that, like, if you look at Paul Gallen, like when he was younger, he had a heap of shit in him, dirt, getting suspended all the time. But then as he got older, he learned to use that power and aggression, and you know, got smart about it, which I think a good dog does. But you got to have it in him to work with, I reckon. So, well, that's how I like mine anyway. Yeah.
And you made a comment there, like the dogs that you go on with, like, so how do you go finding those dogs? Then do you have a system to rate them to go, well, they're going to work within your training program early on, or do you?
Look, I think the dogs find me. You know, like RM was a cull. You know, RM came to me because the guy couldn't handle him, and he wasn't in the round, like he's in the round yard, and he just wasn't made for that. You know, but I got him and put him on a crutching trailer for 3 weeks, and he was, you know, he thought it was Christmas. You know, so I think, you know, and Zone as well, like my really good mate Sam Amos, like Zone was pretty dirty and violent when he was young as well. Like he had a bit of bite and just, you know, like a fair bit to handle, you know, and they ended up with me, you know, and I probably, you know, dogs like that, I don't know, I can relate a little bit because I saw, you know, and I'm not comparing myself to Jim, but I saw what Jim did with a lot of dogs. Like Jim's dog, like Minute, when he got it, like Minute was violent, like terrible. Like he'd bite a sheep that look he could bite like, and when he top knot when he got older he'd bite that hard like his jaw would dislocate. So he was a very hard dog, but that dog in other people's hands, like it might have ended up in a hole, because it was like he was a lot of dog and a bit dirty. But Jim saw the potential in him, and and I'm sure I saw Jim do it with a lot of dogs and what he could do with them. And he always said to me, it's not the most natural dog that's your best dog. He said it's the ones that'll give you everything and go where you want them to go. He said sometimes you get dogs and they're natural, but then when you want to start handling them, they don't like it, and they'll sort of throw the towel in on you. But he said, like Jim always told me, look for the temperament and the mind of the dog. So, and that's probably what I try to look for. I don't mind those dogs with a bit of shit in them. Like I sort of compare them to people. Like the best people I know, they've got a bit of, bit of go under there or a bit of shit. You know what I mean?
So you didn't get Zone or RM as pups then? You got them as older dogs?
No, they were both Coles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you meant, but I just thought I better double check because someone will be thinking the same as me. So, which is pretty cool to think that then,
one man's treasure is trash, another man's treasure sometimes, right? Not so much trash, but like, they didn't get on and
and I'm sure there's been lots of dogs come through your hands that have gone to someone else and become wonders too. Like,
for sure. And just because I get rid of it, like if I think I can. I've had some beautiful dogs come through here, but they just don't quite suit me. And I'm probably pretty hard on my dog. Like I expect a lot. I love my dogs and I look after them. Like I only pretty much feed them meat, and they got good homes and they're rugged in winter. And like I've dedicated my life to my dogs. But I do, I set a bar, and it's all right if they don't want to do it, that's okay. But just go somewhere else. Not with me, because I don't like when it gets hot and hard. Like I want them to, and things are, you're getting into it. Like I want them to come with me, and I don't want them to be looking for the back door when it gets hard. So they're the dogs that I've sort of, the ones that are a little bit crazy, that have just sort of suit me, and I think it suits my personality a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, like you're probably coming to the end of that run. Like, have you got some young dogs coming through?
So I have got I have a fair few young dogs here at the moment. Like I started an online thing and I needed some dogs to train, but I also got to rebuild. And I think everyone, when you have dogs and you're at it a long time, like I've been training dogs for 25 plus years now, and I think, a really good run of dogs, and then they get to the end of it and they get old, and you might, like I had 3 dogs die in 8 months, 3 of my Hunaways, and I've had to start again with the Hunaways. But I think that defines who you are. I think when and there's other people, like you can take other people, for instance, like you look at Adam James, who's an exceptional handler, and probably for his age, no one's close to him really. He's won Australian cattle and 2 national kelpies. He's placed in Australian yards, and he's did it with Moss and Buster and Skep. But those dogs are getting old now, and Adam's, I think it'll define Adam where he's at in the next few years if he can rebuild and get another team. Or look at Benny Costa. He's had a really good run and is pretty much unbeatable there for a good while. And and then he got, the dogs start to get old. He's Jock and Lucy, and then he had some bad luck with Fred, and it, it's really hard to then go to a trial and you're not, you don't have that same dog to turn it on with, but for me, I've hit that point, and like that motivates me, and I believe that defines who I am if I can rebuild another team. And that's why I have so much respect for guys like Chris Stapleton and Jim Lewis, who have done it over such a long period of time. They just keep showing up with these dogs, and they keep taking them trophies home. And but that's part of the journey, especially if you want to stay at it. And a lot of people will just go out of it, and go do something else.
You think, like, now that those dogs for you are coming to an end, and obviously, like, you haven't found those type of dogs again, do you think that at some point maybe you have to try to adjust a little, or do you just hold it and maintain your standard and go, no, I need a dog that does this?
Neil, I don't my main thing that I come back to, and I just ask about every dog, is it practical? You know, and I don't keep dogs to win dog trial. Like I haven't done dog trial for over 2 years by the SD, but I just think, is it practical? You know, can I go and get 2,000 weathers in drenching with a dog? You know, can I do that? Can I go and break some weaners in, or can I muster rough country? Has this dog got a bigger, heap of try in it? You know, so I just ask myself that question: is it practical?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to ask that one?
Yeah. So, in your opinion, where are you finding the best overall stamina in your dogs? Is it more breed specific, or is it certain lines within the breeds?
I think it's, I think there are genetics that, you've got a much better chance of getting a dog that's good in the wind. And I think how you get dogs that are good in the wind, that's got generations of dogs behind it that are proven in the wind, And I think, and I saw that very much so in New Zealand, there's a lot of people there working a lot of stock in the challenging terrain. They're following a horse all day, and those Hunaways, and that's why I fell in love with them, their desire to work. They, and the Kiwis, they, on those big places, like they're looking forward to getting their young dogs to summer. And they say, I just can't wait to get him to summer and slave him, because the dogs need it. Like they need to be taken to the limit and working the guts out of them. And that's not forcing them. Like people think you're working them hard or whatever, but the dogs love it. Like they love it. Like they would die working. Like they love it that much, And I think there's also, if you look up in the, there's Queensland collies and stuff. Like I think Australia had some like really cool collie, like exceptional dogs that are proven, stamina wise and following horses and stuff. But I think the really big thing that the Aussie collies have advantage is they're tested in the heat. Like the heat's a game changer. You go working and, once it gets above, in my experience anyway, where I've worked, and it gets above 35 degrees or, you're getting up into the 40s, like it's like that, you'll soon see what a dog's made of when that starts to happen. So, and I saw it a lot with Jamie Barclay and Sam Amott. You go working on the dip and like they breed for that, they're breeding for a lot of years. Like Jamie Barclay's just bred dogs to hold up to the heat, to keep going when it gets hard. So I do think that, there are bloodlines that you do have a better chance of getting better stamina and will to work.
Are you finding that in any line specifically that you're working with?
I think you can't in the Kelpies. I think you. I go back to Jim Lewis. Like obviously like that Capri, you go find a good Kelpie without Capri Minute in it, and for me, it's hard to do. I think the dog, they got a lot of Capri Zondo and not Capri Avonpart Zondo, and you got Chris Stapleton, I believe, is responsible for putting that dog on the map, putting it over Lucky, but I go for the like RM, he'd have 20 like I reckon he'd have nearly 20 crosses of Capri watching him, and his stamina and will to work was as good as any dog I've seen. And Zone would have the same amount of crosses, and Zone, he had plenty of ticker. And I've seen the Barclay dogs and plenty of them. Like I've worked a lot with Jamie and Sam, and they go back to a little bit of Capri, like old Toby and Harry and all that. Those main dogs, they had a Capri, but they also, that line of that Capri Watch, Phil's Creek Sam, and that's sort of what I've found to be the best minded Kelpies. But I probably don't want to comment too much on the collies. I don't know enough, and maybe haven't had enough experience. But with the Hunaways, like their desire and drive to go is, second to none. Like their motor, that's why I love them.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, you've obviously imported a few Hunaways. Like, I know that. How do they? I'd imagine even your summers aren't as hot as some of the northern summers. But how are the Hunaways holding up to our heat?
Yeah, mine are good, but there are ones like in any breed that don't hold up. But yeah, the one I think you got to be again select for the right genetics and get them off the right people, and that can take time to learn because sometimes you don't know until you get it. But there's some dogs that you'll see them and they got that tongue out hanging right out the side of the mouth, and you're sending it and you can just see they're struggling and don't want to be there. But some dogs, they just can't hold up to it. They just don't have the right conformation. Like their mind might be there, but they just don't have the depth in the breeding behind them, or the conformation, or the ability to do it.
Yeah.
How? What was the inspiration behind your New Zealand trip?
So look, I want to, I'm always wanting to better myself, and when I was a few years ago, I read a book, by Tully Williams actually, and it was just about sheepdogs and stuff. And he said a lot of things that I hadn't heard before, and it just really made me start to question myself and what I was doing and what I wanted. And originally I was writing to the UK collies, and I wanted to go to the UK and compete. I saw James McGee, Becker, 2011 won the world trial in a double gather, and it was just one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And then he'd done it in, I think 2014, he won the Supreme with a 14-month-old, and I was just so amazed and keen and right into the UK style of training, and I, got a heap of their genetics, and but then I just sat down and I really tried to study, like, where are the best people? Because I believe if you want to be the best, and I'm not saying that being the best, so better than everyone, I want to be the best version of myself, and I think to do that, you've got to be around the best people where you think are the best in your field. Like if you want to be a really good shearer, or if you can shear with the best shearers, well, you're probably going to end up a good shearer. Or if you want to be a good farmer, well, you try and line yourself up and work with really good farmers, and then you got to find what makes them a good farmer, and then you write that down. Well, he's doing this and that, and he's bought 4 farms, and or shearing, how many numbers is, and sort of study it a little bit. And for me, I just thought the Kiwis, not only with the Hunaway, they're unique to that country. Like, no, there are a few Hunaways about, but there's not many. There's not many people around the world training Hunaways, and I just thought it was a really cool challenge to go to. First to go there and just see what it's all about. But when I got there, I was like, I thought I was an okay dog trainer when I went there. Look, I just I ran a good run of trials, and I got there, and I ran my dogs up to the courses, and this was on the short head, and RM went into the put away completely the wrong way, and Zone he got him, but it was terrible, and I just thought, I drove it, and even when he was going up, Roy's sitting in the crowd, and he's like, "Dad, the sheep are that way," like it was that bad, and I just thought, this is exactly where I need to be, because it could have been easy to come home with a tail between my legs, but I just wanted to. I thought if I can combine all the best New Zealand stuff, all the best Aussie stuff, and then if I can combine and cherry pick all the stuff here that I think is going to suit me and make me a better dog trainer, I think, that's what I'm about. Like I wanted to get humbled. I wanted to go somewhere where I was the worst in the room, and that gives me motivation and a goal to try and be better. And I suppose that's the main reason why I went to New Zealand, is because I want to be the best version of myself. And I think to do that, you've got to be around exceptional human beings, and not ones that say they are, ones that you see and inspire you.
Definitely. You're known for all your whistles, Jake. What is it about your whistles? What ones do you like? Where do you get them from? And what is it? Because, I believe you have different whistles for different dogs. How do you remember that?
Well, I've grown up. I've been blowing a whistle. So not many people used to use a whistle. Like Jim used to, and Kevin Howe in the yard scene anyway. And it was only probably 4 or 5 years ago, I reckon, that people started really getting into the whistles. But I think I got the whistle off you. Is it Laura? Yeah, I got the Logan twin turbo, and so when I went to New Zealand, I didn't. I'm always looking for little improvements. So where I am at my job, I want to be a good farmer, so I'm always looking for little 1%ers where I can improve. And if I can pick 10 things where I get 1%, well, that gives me 10% more. So I'm always trying to do that. And I saw a guy working 3 dogs at once, 3 different sets of whistles, and I was just like, that's something I can add to me that's going to make me better. And when you're with your dogs, as much as me, like over not quite as much here, but I'm starting to get back into that. But I'm with them, 10 to 14 hours a day, and if you practice and commit to it and just struggle for a little while, it will get better, and you will start to remember everything and all the whistles, and and when you start to see now, like when I'm working my dogs, I'm like, how the hell did I do it without different sets of whistles? Because it gives me so much more capability on a day's work where I can work different dogs and, cover different places without, if I said round like I used to, 3 dogs are going to go. But now I can give a run and give a right to that dog and send that one up the front and drop it at the gate. And like if I'm going up the laneway, and like it just gives me so much more capabilities.
So my question to that probably is, why a whistle and not 3 sets of words?
Well, I think so a lot of my work's long distance. Like you go to New Zealand and it's like a long way. And even where I was at, like I bought a block out the back on the Abercrombie, and it was just the roughest, shittest block. Like it was just covered in serrated tussock rock and a big gorge and just goats and just like proper goat track to even get to it. And if you're going out there, and it does get hot, and you're roaring at your dog all day, like it's not how I want to do it. And I think it looks, I want to be as professional as I can, and I want to look, I don't want to look good. That doesn't sound right, but I want to, when I do something, I want to do it well, So if someone turns up here and I'm here screaming my head off, like for me, it's not a good look. I'd rather be, if I can send 2 dogs out and left and right and just whistles, I reckon it looks professional. And I want to be a professional at my job. I want to be the best I can be at it. So for me, voice, and I'm not against people who use voices, but just for me, I'd like to, I just think it's so much smoother, clearer, get different tones and just more precise control. If I got running sides on the dog and I just want to steer him a little bit, I can just turn a little bit of my whistle on and, or if I want a really big ride, I can just hold the whistle on hard. But with a voice, you can't do that. You don't have as much control, in my opinion.
Yeah. And sorry, Daniel, how do you come up with all those different whistles?
It's hard now because I've got about a dozen dogs here and I'm trying to, but I've got like a default set. So I can sort of tell dogs now that I won't be keeping. So they'll go get the same whistles and you just start recycling them. So I've just so Sam's coming up, what's he, 5 or 6? So he's like, Sam's been thrashed a bit. I reckon a good dog that's done plenty of work or they'll start to slow down about 6, 7. So I've just started putting Sam's whistle on a young dog because the time I get him broken in, 18 months old, like Sam will be slowed right down and I'm not going to be using using him as much. So I'd recycle some, but it is, don't get me wrong, it is challenging, but I think, again, it comes back to, if everyone could do it, well, then it's not, I think if you can invest that time into yourself and study it, record it, listen to it, and then that's going to make you better. And it's just like studying anything, there's so many different tones you can do. So just, I'm a stockman, I'm a farmer, and I'm really proud of it. I love, what happens on the farm here with the sheep, and that is, a reflection of me, and I want to do it as good as I can. So I try and put time and effort into studying that. And people might think that's silly to study whistles, but if you want to be good, you've got to do things. Not, I think you need to invest time into yourself. A lot of people might see that is a waste of time, but for me, it makes me so much more efficient and capable at work.
Would you have similar whistles for dogs, but you're just flicking different tones of that whistle?
Yeah, I do have. So I've got a dog there that, like one dog's stop is, and then I can just, another dog's lie down is, it's the same sound, or then you go low, high, or let like it's the same sound but just different pitches, and then you can have a lower vibration or you can have a really high vibration. So there are ways, but if you just invest time in it and just pick a set, get it on your phone, record it, and just listen to it and practice it until you get it right. Like I've been with my partner now for 6 months and she never blew a whistle. She's like, I can't do it. And I was like, that's not true. And it's taken us 6 months and now she's just starting to get it, but it's like, you've got to be consistent every day and be willing to suck at it. A lot of people blow it for a bit. I can't blow one of these, but you need to just commit and, it will get better and you will pick it up. I think anyway.
Is there any whistle or whistle tone you'd suggest not using?
No,
Because
not really.
like for me personally, I'm like, but what if that is going to do that? And then you overthink it. But
Yeah, well, just get it simple. And if you want, and just start with one dog and just get it right, and then get another dog and just focus. And even if you're like, righto, and then just write it down. Why am I not getting it right?
yeah.
And just then you can go read it. Okay, I need to do this, and just really simplify it and break it down. And like educating yourself in anything, it takes time to become proficient at it. But you have to be willing. I just find a lot of people are not willing to persevere when they need to. You've got to stick at it and show a little bit of drive and just think, okay, I suck at this now, and that's okay, but I'm going to just keep at it and at it and at it until it works.
Or I blow at this rather than suck at it too, right? Got to blow on those whistles. Anyways, we're talking about lots of control here with your whistles, right? And a lot of people might think that makes your dogs too mechanical. But then you're talking about putting your zone over the fence and him just pissing off and finding sheep. Do you believe those dogs that can take that level of control still keep that natural ability?
Yeah, and I'll probably get this, and it sort of comes back to me a fair bit that my dogs are robots and stuff, and that's okay. But there's no reason. I always find it's the people who say that are the people that don't have much handle on their dogs, and I think there's no reason why you can't have a broken in dog that's natural. You can have a natural dog that you can, if you just go and it stops, whereas a lot of people, especially people that say this, you'll watch them work a dog and you go, okay, well, this fella's saying this, should I copy him? I don't go off what they say, I'll go off what they do. And you look at it and they go, or they're going sit, round, back. So I just think there's no reason why you cannot have a natural dog that's really well broken in. You don't have to give the command all the time. It's just when you want to say, go, stop, get up, they do what you say without having to say it 10 times. So I disagree with the whole, and sometimes you might take it too far and break a dog in too much. And I've done that in the past, but that's learning, that's just part of becoming a good dog trainer. And then you learn what not to do and how much to put on. And, but for me, I want to have, John Perry is probably another really big mentor of mine. He said, if you got no handle, he said, you got nothing. And I agree with him.
How about when you've taken on your challenge with your Hunaways, did you have to, where did you get was there a mentor there, but did you change anything in the way you handle them that you then incorporated into working your Kelpies?
Yeah, there are little similarities and stuff, but you could think of the hardest collie or Kelpie that you've ever had and times it by 10 to break in a hard going Hunaway. It's really, really hard. And well, for me, it is anyway. And like how those Kiwis do it. And I'm still very green at it. I am not a good Hunaway trainer. I still have so much to learn. But there are guys over there and there's generational knowledge there where those guys have been working in the toughest terrain. And the precision and the handle that those guys can put on those dogs is amazing. But I did find some similarities in training, but the Hunaway is very, very difficult to train, especially if it's got a fair bit of go.
And how much has that challenge of training something different helped you develop, not just as a dog handler, but as an individual?
Well, I think Yeah, it definitely has helped me as a dog trainer because you need to find different ways and the wider range of experience you have. Like I'm 38, Jim didn't start trialing until he was 41. So, I think if I can keep accumulating knowledge and there are goals and things that I want to achieve, but I want to have all bases covered. Like if I need a quiet, calm mustering dog, I want to have it. If I want to, need a big hunaway just smoking out a heap of big country and, I want to have it. If, I want a good race dog, I want to have it. I don't want to put myself in a box. I want to have all bases covered. And again, that comes back to, how you do your job and who you want to be. And I want to be a really good hand at a dog, and I want to have experience at all angles. I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to be weak in any area on a farm, like handling. We joined 8,000 ewes here, and we've got 1,150 cows we joined this year. Plus, I've got a few hundred cows of my own, plus sheep, and I don't want to be left hanging. I don't want to be going for the tin rattle or tooting the horn. I want my stock handled well, and I want to have all bases covered. So
Yeah. Do you breed many of your own pups, mate?
I don't own a bitch. I wish I did have a good Kelpie bitch because I do have 3 dogs I would like to get pups by, but I ended up just going and getting some semen and out of all of them, and hopefully one day I can get a good Kelpie bitch to breed out. But at this stage, I don't own a bitch, and I don't really like breeding pups too much. I'm not very I just don't like doing it too much. Yeah.
Is there a reason you got more dogs in your team and no bitches? Or
Well, I had 2 really good bitches, and they both died. Like I lost Esther. She was the first hunter I ever broke in, and she did a lot of work for me. Really clean mustering, like little. She was a smaller hunaway, but very compact, like and plenty of ticker, and she did everything for me. And she died, and then I had Poi, who did a lot of work for me, and I took her to NZ, but when I got home from NZ, like 10 days later, she passed away on me. So I don't have many bitches at the moment.
and when you start adding to your team, how do you go about sourcing a pup for yourself?
So I've got like 10 young dogs here at the moment that I'm breaking in, and I'm putting plenty of time into all of them. I've got a tennis court 10 meters from my front door with 8 cages, and like I'm training them twice a day at least. And I don't, I would love them to be by my dogs, but unfortunately it hasn't turned out that way. And I don't think Zane's really bred on that well. There's been maybe 4 or 5 dogs that I would say are handy. Sam, he's had a couple of bitches, and I haven't really. And RM, he's a good dog. But Sam is by him, and Mia's by him. But yeah, I just try to be honest with myself about it, and just don't get. I always say treat them for what they are, not what I want them to be. Yeah, and the ones by my dog, most of them have been shit. So I just go somewhere where I can. I've tried a few. I got a couple off a guy up in Queensland. I got one off Stephen Flatley at Bruton Vale, just because I saw a dog at this Tamworth Spectacular I really liked that Paul Rowe works at Jats, and so I got one off him. And who else? I've got one there off Bill Luff gave me that was a bit like RM. He's too mad for Bill, so he's actually a pretty handy dog. I've got one off Nige Brazier. So I've done a bit of work for Nige, and just see him at the trials, and I sort of like the mind on his dogs. Like they seem like a good temperamented dog. Like he gets a fair bit of handle on him, Nige, and they sort of love him. So I tried one of them out. I've got a couple of collies that I got off someone I don't know, but it's well bred by Dick Chapman dog, and he's quite nice. And yeah, so I don't have, a technique of sourcing young dogs. I just give them a go, and if they aim up, they do, and if they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Have you at what age is the milestones, or do you kind of make your decision where I've started this pup, I've worked it through my program, it's kind of not going to make the cut for me?
4 months. 4 months. If I don't see something that I like, and it 4 months they're out.
Yeah, and like even in that's attitude's probably your biggest thing at that age. Like even if they're not, showing all the pretty stuff, but like as long as they got that attitude to want to shift sheep, you'll persevere that dog.
Just like I just want to. I just have to like them, And if they do things I don't like, well, I don't like them, so I'd get rid of them, And I want to like them. I want them. I had Dan Matthews here do a school, and he's actually, like he spoke to people about pups and desire and they want them to be with you. And like I sort of do a little bit similar thing. Like I'll walk up to a cattle grid and I'll just see how it deals with it, And some pups won't cross and run home, and some will be just like squealing trying to get across to you and falling down through the cracks and just howling to get to you. Or you're walking through long grass and they wig out and run away, or they get lost, But those good ones, they just seem to, for me anyway, they just seem to, please me, and I end up just liking them, So it's not always on their work at that stage, but it's just if I like having them around, if they've got a good mindset and show a bit of ticker and desire, yeah.
Beautiful, mate. We've mentioned trialing a few times tonight. Is there a particular format that you really enjoy more than anything else?
Look, I probably stepped away from the yard trialing a bit, and I focused I went to New Zealand obviously, and I trained really hard there for 18 because I did want to run a dog up a course before I went home, and I ended up doing that. And then I've come home, and for like four years, I worked really hard to get back to New Zealand this year. In April, I went for 5 weeks, and so that's probably something I've really focused on. That's a big goal of mine, to keep working on that and getting to New Zealand. And like I said, I reckon they're the best in the world there, and what sets them apart is the numbers that they're handling, and that's where I reckon they have the advantage over the Europeans and stuff, because a lot of those guys in Europe, like they're not handling numbers, and that's not to say they can't. Like I think Ricky Hutchinson and Kevin Evans and Alec, I am amazed by them. I love watching their stuff, and I've learnt so much watching them on YouTube, but I just think where the Kiwis pull ahead is there's plenty of dogs there just following horses all day, working 20,000 ewes, 2,000 cows, and they're just into it. And that sort of suits me better with those dogs that are really proven with big days behind them. When it goes right back through their pedigree. So the Hunaways is probably something in the short term that I'm pretty focused on, and I'm hoping to have three dogs that I'm breaking in to take back there next year to the Nationals, and and then I will start to poke away a little bit. I would like to maybe compete in the test team one day in the 3 sheep, but I'm probably a little way off that. I've got a lot to learn. I haven't done very much of it, but I would like to. One of my goals, I'd love to be in a test team with Mick Hudson as the captain one day, but I don't know if that'll happen. I've got a long way to go to do that.
That's cool, mate. And you mentioned a little bit earlier about you've got these young dogs you're training up and the format you got. What was the inspiration behind that?
I do want to help people. Like one of my big motivating things, like I'm not going to New Zealand just to get clout, try. It's not fully about me. I do want to do my bit. I've seen a lot of good guys like Jim do massive amounts for the dog industry, and I want to do my bit, and I want to try and lift the standard of handling in Australia. And with that, I'm probably going to get criticised and critiqued. But I think at the end of the day, like I am an Aussie, and I'm really proud of that. And I do want to go over there and represent us, and show that there are some fellas over there that can work a dog. But I have had to eat some. I've had plenty of humble pie over there, that's for sure. But I do with the online stuff. I'm just trying to share. I've had some pretty amazing people help me, and I'm just trying to share some of the techniques and things that I've learned, not only with training dogs, but just stock handling techniques. Like I saw stock handling techniques that I'd never seen before. So if you don't know, you don't know. And, when I was younger, I would have, like I said, I had to ring on the house phone and my mum would be roaring at me to get off it because trying to get knowledge. Whereas now, there's so much information readily available, and I'd just probably like to share some of the just some of the stuff that I've learnt. And there is financial benefits too, but it's not fully motivated by that, and it's something I'm really like. I have struggled with it a lot. Like I'm not. I don't. You know. I don't want to put myself out there too much or talk myself up or market myself too much, but just the way the world is these days, and I do believe I've got a bit of a skill set that some people could learn off. So, yeah.
Ah, that's cool, mate. Look, and sorry, you've mentioned a couple of times like the stock handling techniques in NZ, like kind of just like have really, really impressed you. Like, can you get a little bit deeper into what some of those might be?
Just yard handling techniques. Like there's a lot of good yard handling techniques, like things like fence jumping, like with the, you're putting sides on at the right time to get them to jump a fence. Like how they're shifting stock through, big numbers, how they're shifting them through big hills and how they're shifting them through the yards. And yeah, there's the Kiwis they are exceptional at what they do, and that culture that the All Blacks have, that is deeply ingrained. Like that is deeply ingrained in that place, and the people there are so hardworking, and they're so driven and high performing, like across the board. When from north to south, like there's an exceptional dog trainer every 5Ks down the road. Like there's guys at of our best guys in Australia. There's a guy like that every 10Ks down the road over there. Like it is a small place, but like it's a really, really exceptional place.
Culture.
I think
training
we actually underestimate in Australia, like in New Zealand, the dog culture to have not just working dogs or not just stock dogs, but working dogs in general. Like I just got back from New Zealand a couple of weeks ago, for example, and of a morning you go to get your breakfast, and just about everybody is walking a dog.
Yeah.
Like just about everyone has a dog with them. Like whether it's out the front of a cafe or they're on a beach or they're doing some conservation work, going and doing like pest eradication. Or like the dogs are such a massive culture in NZ.
Oh, for sure. They love their rugby and their dogs and their farming, and it's a pretty special place. And I have a lot of respect and admiration for the Kiwis and how they go about their farming practices and their dogs, and just the dedication and commitment they have to their dogs, and just the knowledge there, like how they do some of that stuff. It's just it's for a dog geek, it's definitely it's probably been the highlight of my life. Probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do as well, like living over there by myself for a couple of years, and it was hard, and but it's been probably the most rewarding as well.
Mate, when the boys grow up, could you ever see yourself being a permanent resident over there for a period of time?
I don't think so. I did my stint living there, and I love Australia and my home, and I'm pretty focused on I will keep going back there to compete, but it'll only be for a week or two at a time. I think I've spent a huge amount of money investing, in just dog travel, and like I went over there and I actually applied for a shepherd's job, and the fella said, "Look, I can't give you that. You're going to have to manage a block." And it was a section of a block, and it was a 35,000 acre place, and it was. I think I was on $42,000 a year, and I sold everything I had to get there. So I was living on nothing week to week, and I was sending any spare money I had home to Amy and the boys, but we were broken up at the time, and but I was still trying to support her, and so I had nothing. I was just living off. I was shooting these big wappities off. They'd come in on the beach at night, like sort of elk, cross deer, and just eating mutton and deer, and just went. I was just it was pretty hard, like financially and stuff, because they don't pay well there, and when you live in a country by yourself, and I was right down the bottom of the South Island, and it's freezing cold, and the romanticism, it wears off pretty quick, especially when you're working a huge amount in a big place, and you're not you go to another country and you're managing, like you don't know all the rules and like how they do things, because they do things different, and it's I was really out of my comfort zone, but I just tried to deal with it. I just put my head down and bum up and just got in. I just worked really hard and trained dogs as much as I could.
Has anyone ever given you like a line or two of advice that stuck with you?
Oh yeah, there's always little things that stick with you, but it's probably a line. It's not off a person as such, but it's off a movie. My favourite movie growing up was 8 Seconds, and
Good movie.
when Tough goes to walk out the door, and I don't know why it stuck with me, but when Tough goes to walk out the door to go bull riding, first time his mates are picking him up, and his dad sings out to me, he goes, "If you're going to ride, Lane, you might as well be the best." And Lane's like, "That's what I plan on being," and I don't know why it stuck with me, but I'm not saying I want to be better than everyone, but just if you're going to do something, you should try and be good at it, because you got to do it anyway. And I think, and the other one was at the end where he says, "Don't be scared to go after what you want, but don't be scared to pay the price." And that's something that I think, if you want to be good at something, there's a price to that. And a lot of people might not see the things that you have to go through, but if you want to be exceptional at something, I think it's going to be hard, and you're going to have a huge amount of challenges, and sometimes it's not, for me anyway, it's not so much the destination, but it's who you become along the way, and that's something that's pretty important to me.
Wanting to be competitive over in NZ with the trialing, do you think there's something that they have there that they do from day to day that you might have to mock as a scenario or something particular to be competitive? Like, if that makes sense. Like, to make sure.
When I first left there, like I really worked hard to get a dog, and I ran a dog up a course as an 18-month-old bitch just at a trial down near Gore somewhere, and I did well. And then I went back with Poi, and I took Sam as well, and I did well. I was, from where I started to where I got to, I feel like I was pretty happy with the thing, but I was competitive at some trials. I did 7 trials in 4 weeks, and I was competitive, but I did have some there where I was, some moments there where it was just very shameful. Like Sam embarrassed me there terribly one day, and then Poi, instead of hunting them up the court, I started to lose her at the end because she had so much dog in her, and over there they call it dog trial happy, and I sort of lost her, and instead of her hunting them up the hill, she'd bring them back down.
Yeah. Oh, you get other big jobs, all right? Back to the drawing board.
Oh, it's just how it goes, and you just got to be willing to fail, and But I was pretty happy with how I performed over there with myself and my dogs, and I went over there with another young guy, Luke Platts, and he's a very good friend of mine, and he's someone who's not many people may not have heard of him yet, but they will. Like, he took a Kelpie over there and he ran his dog up some of the biggest courses in New Zealand, on the long head, and he won 2 maidens, and and he came to me when I came home from New Zealand about 4 years ago, and he pulled all those, I don't know if you've seen those old Kelpies, he had a couple of old smoky grey Kelpies with the big barrel guts on them and the real little short legs, and
Yep.
they were pretty woeful, and he knew nothing, and I've been pretty hard on him, and he kept coming back and coming back and coming back, and to go over there and watch him run a dog up some courses, I was actually like real proud of him, and in years to come, I think you'll hear a lot more about Luke. Yeah,
Definitely.
We can see your passion for livestock and dogs. Like, it's evident, it's clear as. What if Jake Nowlan didn't have dogs and farming in his life? What profession do you think you would follow?
I can't. I wouldn't be able to do anything else, or I don't. my dogs are my life, you know. And I've left farming before. I went to Sydney when I was 18, and you know, I tried to live down there, and you know, I did a couple of years, and then I came home again, and I tried to go away again, and I went up to Newcastle for a couple of years, but my calling, and it's my dogs, you know. And it's always, when I look back in my life, it's always been that way. Like I've always, whenever things have gone bad for me, or you have hard times, or you know, for me, it's always come back to my dogs, and I'm just real grateful. And I do thank God every day for what He's done for me with my dogs and bringing them into my life, because I don't know what I would do without them, you know. And they've given me, you know, probably a person who didn't have a heap of, might have looked like on the surface I had a heap of self-belief and stuff, but I didn't. And where I've found that is, you know, when I was 18, 19, I couldn't ring, you know, I struggled really socially and talking to people and stuff, but what's made me, you know, be able to believe in myself more and give me self-confidence, it's been through a lot of hard work and dedication with my dogs. And I'm not put on this earth to do anything else except what I'm doing now. And I think that's in life, I think it's something that's really important to me. That is, where you wake up each morning, how do you feel? You know, are you where you choose to be? And I think a lot of us aren't. But I think that's something that I reckon most people should ask themselves. When you wake up in the morning, are you where you want to be? And if you're not, well, why not? You know, and write it down and put it to action, what you have to do to be where you want to be.
Great advice.
Yeah, I can't say I could do anything else. That's not possible. Me and no dogs, it just doesn't work.
Love it, mate. Thanks so much for your time tonight. Like, we really appreciate it. I know it's not easy for you to talk in front of a camera like you have tonight, and you've really opened it up, mate. We really appreciate that. What weird fucking questions do you have tonight, Laura?
If a movie was made about your life, what would it be called, and who would play Jake Nowlan?
Oh.
What would it be called? Well, I'm probably just going to say a movie that's already made, and it's something that inspired me massively. And it's a movie called Jerry Maguire, and it's about a guy who loses everything, and you know, and he believes in himself, and he ends up making it and killing it. So, and Tom Cruise is not too bad.
Nah, not at all, mate. Thanks heaps. Really appreciate your time to get on. For everybody listening back, and everyone that tuned in live.
It's only
tonight.
taken 130 episodes.
Yeah, it only took
thanks,
a while.
Jake.
It only took a while.
And thanks, Sam Amos, because Sam rang me before he come on, and Sam's one of my best mates, and he said, Jake, I'm going to nominate you, but I'm not nominating you if you won't do it. And he said, if I do it, you can do it. So you have Sam Amos for...
Thanks to him.
So that said, is there anyone you'd like to see us sit down and have a yarn with?
Oh, there's a couple, actually. I think someone who's, I believe, is one of the top men in the country. He's grew up on 80,000 acres out at Hay, and he bought... You know, when he was young, him and his family, they went and bought 20,000 acres of probably the most challenging place that I've ever worked on, and it will break you out there. Like, it's tough as. And Dave Crawford's been out there his whole life, and he's someone who I hold in the highest regard, and he's a really good friend and someone who I think has a huge amount of knowledge, and he's a very humble, good guy. So he's one. And then the other one is a guy called Tully Williams. He inspired me a lot, not through his book. I read his book probably a dozen times, and you know, he wouldn't like my dogs, and you know, his way of working and stuff probably doesn't align with me, but it still inspired me a lot, and just to question things, and try to just challenge yourself. So I do owe Tully a lot. I think it's probably the best book that I've ever read on dogs. So Tully Williams.
Beautiful.
Awesome, mate. Thank you. We'll follow them up. I have tried to speak to Dave before about getting him on, mate. So you might be able to chew easier a little for us if you can.
Yeah, well, I reckon he'll come on. He'll come on now that I did it.
Mate, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. Thank you to everyone that tuned in and listening back. And please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning from each other will be a sad one.
If it's all right, I'd just like to give a quick mention to just Paul Elliott, passed away a couple of weeks ago, and he's one of the really special dog guys in Australia, and he's got a really beautiful family, and he helped me so much with my dogs. And yeah, just my thoughts and prayers are with his family, and yeah, we lost a real good one there. So yeah, and thanks heaps for all the information, and I've spent many hours in the tractor listening to you guys and driving around. So yeah, just thanks heaps for the time and effort you put into this.
No, without people coming on, Jake, this is nothing. So thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers, mate. Good night.
Bye.